Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming and welcome to locale-aware application talk. My today's talk is about how you can localize or internationalize your application smoothly. It is an integral part of every application development or application software development. It may not be a main concern in system applications, system software, but I'm pretty sure for every or for all kind of application software you need that. So the talk will start with an introduction and a terminology overview. After that, I will introduce you ICU library and how you can install Intl PHP extension. Everybody can hear me?
Yeah, it's definitely better when you're right in the mic.
Sure. Because I need to say.
Do you want to move the machine?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Or I can. Okay, that's good. After that, we will focus on the formatting, numbers, times, and message, mainly in backend of your software. So consider that you have an application that will or helps users to arrange parties, example 2, or you want to send a text message to your customers that they have to 20% discount for some products. Here you will see that you have 3 keywords, percent, the price, and the date. And consider that you are only developing for Australia. Even considering one locale, you will need to still format this value and these 2 values. Now consider that you need to target 5 other countries. In each country, they certainly use a different format for currencies, for rendering numbers, and for the text itself, it needs to be translated. So it's, there are more than, I guess, if you consider 5 countries, 15 different strings may be required for those values other than the translation of the string. Now consider the second example. I would like you to think about that before I show the solution for that. But consider that in your application, you need to display this message somewhere. So as a PHP developer, you know the number of guests, you know the number of the name of host, an array of the guests, and you want to display this simple message in the screen. How do you approach that one? So if there is one guest, you may display Anna invite Reza, only Reza, or it may be if there is no party, it will you need to display Anna will have no party or similar things. And depend on the gender of the host, you may need to update the her to his, or if there are more than one host, you may need to use the other. How do you implement this scenario? Do you use a lot of for each statements? What about translating this? So you may have around 9 different sentences, and you need to translate that in different language. What is the best way to do that? Should the backend developer address this requirement, or a front-end developer, or someone else? So we will answer or try to localize those 2 messages later. What is a locale? So a locale is a geographical place or areas. Most of the time you will map it to countries, but you know that in many countries people have different cultural elements, different language, different ways of writing or similar things. So you know we have around 100 countries, but the number of locales supported in PHP is more than 700. So it is the local. What is localization? So localization and internationalization. Have you heard about them, or do you know the difference between internationalization and localization? Anyone know? Oh, what is the difference?
I think localization is the process of adapting your system into localized environments.
So can you speak up?
Look, I think localization is the process of making your software more accessible to the cultures and countries. Internationalization is the process of making a code-based software that be able to localize in
That's right.
using the standards.
Perfect. Yeah, so international, if we start with localization, that was a relatively good definition. So in programming, so it is a commercial term. It may be far more than a simple localization of the application. So you need to localize your marketing, your advertisement, a lot of stuff. But from the programming perspective, localization is adapting the data that you represent to end users. From the cultural perspective, linguistic perspective, you may need to change the currencies, the presentation of the scientific notation, or a lot of similar things. You may need to localize your application for once or more, once per local. The important thing is that you always have to localize your application for at least one locale. So even if you are developing a web application that is targeted only one language, you still need to localize your application. What is internationalization, as mentioned by our friend? Internationalization is actually a technical and engineering process that you consider or you will perform during the process of the application development itself. It may be a one-go process, or it may be a continuous task. So once you internationalize your application, it is now easy, very fast, to localize it for any number of locale that you need. In one scenario, a company named Lotus lost the Europe market because they failed to localize the application in a logical time frame. So after 2 years that they could localize their spreadsheet product, Microsoft was already took the market of the Europe. So in this diagram, you will see a simple representation of these two concepts. So if the internationalization is good and comprehensive, you will need no technical task to localize your application. So you know that these rules or these formattings are common among millions of people. So for example, 1 billion people use Chinese patterns of writing, currencies, numbers, or those kind of things. So it doesn't make sense that we rewrite or redevelop this or write the API to normalize your output. A group of people have shared all patterns and rules that is required for each locale in a repository in the XML format and shared it with the open source community. Another groups, that's the first one is CLDR, Unicode Common Local Data Repository. Another group provided a common API to access these repositories among a shared good API for Java and C++. And in PHP Intl extension is a wrapper actually for the C++ implementation. It is embedded in PHP from version 5.3, so you don't need to worry about that a lot. As well as you install that correctly, all of its features will be ready to use. Okay. So there are ways to install that extension. If you see your PHP info page, you should see this extension here. It will show ICU version. You know, it will provide access to strict type of repositories. So ICU data version is 63. Another group of people provided a common repository for all time zone change. So you know that every year each country, according to their policy, they update its light savings. So it is hard for us to track all of this change. So we have another good place to follow this change. TZ data. It is embedded in the Intl. And the Unicode itself is updated every year. We have access to all Unicode metadata as well. The Unicode version is 11. And you will see the ways that you need to. Once you install the Intl, you will have access to all of these classes. I grouped them. These classes are not very good documented in the PHP documentation. Sometimes you need to refer to the ICU documentation itself. So I hope this presentation helped you to start quicker, because some of them are not easy to comprehensive if you only read the short PHP documentation for them. So we have three formatter classes: date formatter, number formatter, message formatter. So and these three are the focus of following slides. We have these three that are for text manipulation or normalization. I will overview them if I find some extra time at the end. So for now only, please take a quick look to their names. I may come back to this slide later if I find some free extra time. So local identifiers is very key aspect of localization. They are standardized in RFC 4646. And with a local identifier, you will tell your application exactly how it should transform each data presentation. So, with, for example, the most complex one is this one. So, this the first two letters. I'm sure that all of you have exposed to these strings. You will see them in HTML, in the Linux, in any programming language. Is it right? Have you noticed to them ever? To this one? No? Okay. So with this string, I show that the language is Serbian. It's Slovenian. The script that is used in this language is Latin. It is taught in or spoke in Italy, and its variant of the language is Nedis. So providing this short string to the formatter or to any internationalization scenario, you will have your data ready to be presented to this audience. So, and it can be more complex. You will have this in the JavaScript recently in the Intl API. So if you get familiar with these things that we will talk about, you can use them directly in Java, Python, and other programming languages as well. So some of those classes are mainly ways to access the to extract some data. For example, the local class. I hope I can be quick with the light here. So a simple essential class here is the local class itself. So you see that I wrote a short script to see what is available in this specific class. So I said, so consider that you need to display a pop-up menu to change between the language of your website. You don't need to translate this. The country names, the language name, they are all already translated. So the only thing that you need to do is to present the local identifier, and you call these four functions. So local, get primary language, for example, from this one, and it will return this. So they are in the machine readable format. And if you need to translate these elements to any language, you only need to call that class again with the name of the identifier of that locale. So you see that this script, without any translation, I have its full translation to all of these languages. To Persian, to Chinese, to even a less known language, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, this Khmer or similar to that. So it is a Cambodian language, and to Turkish. So consider now you want to translate or localize your application for a user. One of challenges in internationalization in general is how to detect the current locale of the user. So one very common way is to read the accept-language HTTP header. So you will see that here the browser will provide some preferences for the preferences of the user regarding the language that he or she can understand. Using the Intl class itself, you can get the locale of the current user by sending that header. But it is not enough. You may have, for example, Australian English. A user from, for example, South Africa want to use your application. This simple function will not help you to redirect that user to the English site, because at least the country is Australia, but the best option still is the Australian English. So you can use this package. It is actually based on an algorithm in RFC 7231. Will draw the negotiation. So after you install this package, that is a relatively popular package, you can provide an array of your, or you can provide the locales that you support, and it will select the best locale that you can use later. Okay, now consider that we now know the locale of the user. We need to localize all numbers that will be displayed in the browser, in our emails, in short text messages, etc. So regarding the numbers, what can be localized? So you know the digits may be different, decimal points is not dot in every language, thousand separator. It may be a type or percentage, you need to know that one. You need to spell out. Spelling out is very common even in day-to-day programming, and ordinality. Okay, so all of those aspects, that 6 aspects, can be achieved very quick, very clean with the number formatter. So how can we use the number formatter? Number formatter will accept the locale and the number. Okay, so consider they are our locales. And you need to also specify what is the intention or the usage of that number. Is it a decimal, currency, percent, scientific, ordinal, duration, etc. I wrote for each here, and you will see how the numbers are different in different locales. So you see that they are different in the digits. Take a quick look to this table to see how numbers are presented differently in different locales. So you see, for example, the separator is different. Some are dot, some use dot, some common, and vice versa. Even the percentage symbol can be displayed in left or right. And you know, without any translation or asking anybody to translate number, you will have the spelling of that number. Very clean, very... Some people don't use this and they start writing functions. Not needed. They are all embedded in the PHP. And one of the most challenging localization aspect is time. You know, it has very different aspects. We use based on the calendar system. Most of us ignore that one, but we know that in different countries, people may use different calendar system that even the length of the months, then the year number itself may be different. And you sometimes need to format the date. You do that, I guess, very often using datetime class or any formatter. But actually, you don't need to play with those placeholders. You only need to specify the local and the length of the dates that you need to receive from the API, and it will provide you the best presentation of the dates. So here, you will see that without specifying any format, only by providing the local, I can get 4 different lengths of dates with in different locales. So for example, here in Australia, here in AU, and you can compare it with UK. So I didn't provide anything, but it's formatted that in the best way. So you can display that immediately after that. You don't need to worry about how to represent. And even the calendar conversion is happened. For example, if you know these numbers, you will notice that the year number is different. So it is actually a totally different calendar system. So how can we use this one? Sorry, this message formatter. Okay, this one is, its documentation is a little bit tricky, but here is the explanation. So the main function here is Intl date formatter. It accepts 4 parameters: the local itself, the length, and the third parameter is Intl date local formatter. I said that none here. Time zone and the mode. So in the API, if you need to represent all the dates in the Gregorian calendar, you set that to Gregorian. But if you want to actually automatically convert the dates to the calendar of your local, you can use this the other mode. I passed from this one because this is the most important one. So message formatter is very useful. It answers my question in the beginning of the talk. So if you want to display this image and at the same time translate the text, you can provide the translation. I translated the sentence to 2 languages. And you know, as a programmer, I only need to provide the variables. I don't need to worry about what is the order of the placeholders in any language. And if you use this one, you have an embedded simple template engine in PHP itself. So you know, I provided the local for these values. I got these strings from the translator, and using this format, I say that this count is a number and I need to be represented as %. So this is a date and this is the currency. So the translator can use any combination. You think this mechanism in other frameworks probably, but here at the same time it will localize all values for you. And the interesting part. So as I mentioned, for that party management application, you don't need to worry about the gender of the user, how they inflect nouns in different languages, or so on. We have a format. So you, as a developer, you provide the values for that sentences, and you ask your translator to provide this string. Here, for example, it starts with the gender of the host. It starts selecting. So if it is a female, it will follow this format. If it is a male, and others. So if you want to write that one in the pure PHP, I guess you need at least 6, 7 if-else statements, and they will only be for the first language. What about other languages? So the benefit of using this message formatter is obvious. And you see it's rendered different language based on different things. I could not review the other classes. I ran out of time. Thanks for your attention. If any question, I can answer. Thank you.
So if there are any questions, then please feel free to ask Reza. We still have roughly 5 minutes for a question and answer session.
Just wondering, these are exit language and the browser request language not prepared for certain versions of that.
How it is provided? What was the question exactly? Again?
So browser request language.
So user provides his, and you know, according to the OS default language, the setting of the browser,
Yeah.
so it will be.
In your application, you usually have a fallback default. I think a lot of us can fallback to English.
Very like server error, which did not provide the same.
I mean, it's up to you as the application to or what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst outcome? Is it the user that raised the fallback language, or the user gets an error? Like, what's
Using an error.
yeah, so don't do that one.
No, yeah. Responsible to server, say, I don't understand what I'm saying.
Well, I always talking API or always talking content.
You need to also write the or store the local of each user, because most of the time that thing will not represent the best local for the user. So you need column your user table always for the local of the user. If you have the local and the time zone, that is enough information to localize in the best way for that specific user. And this presentation also, actually, you have other aspects for localization. Regarding to the direction of the user, you need to consider that in the UI level. But regardless of that, if you localize your application this way, you don't need to worry about any of localization, because they all should be provided by non-technical people, and a lot of platforms can provide you those strings, so you will save money. If in your developments you are encountering this sort of bug fixes, unfortunately the process in that team or that company is defective. So as a developer, you should not in any way worry about how to represent data. You not only to get the string and return the localized version.
According to HTTP spec, you can choose to return it 406 not acceptable, but it also says the server can choose to disregard the accept language request for user experience.
It's all very light.
Yeah. Again, if your user agent says that you are coming from like a Slovenian origin, then what's the better user experience? Give us 406 back, or give an English page back.
Everyone knows a 406.
406, right? It's not available in Slovenia.
It's not 500, it's not a server error, so I'm requesting something like that.
Yeah, right.
Another quick question, maybe, before we start networking.
Would you recommend any internationalization libraries as opposed to using the PHP native stuff? Like anything that builds on top of it that's going to make life a bit easier?
So a wrapper for that to make it easier, there may be some repositories on GitHub, but my way of using that is that I create a very simple class, and I provided the most important data type that I need to localize. So, you know, the principal component is message formatter. So after you had that one, you only need to, for example, in the template engine in Laravel, for example, you use the underline something for translation. You can replace that function with the message formatter. And in another place, you need to detect the local, set that somewhere. And once you have the local, you need very simple functions to return the. So you don't need actually a very advanced or wrapper around Intl. You only need to set the local and get the result. That's
How did you get the country used the user agent? You do it by IP address?
Yeah, so detecting or deciding which local you can use is up to you, and it needs to be adapted to different audience. It may be different way. So using the HTTP header is one way, but it is only for guest user. If you have, if a user log into your system, you probably know his or her language, and you can use that. You first look to the preferences of the user. Yeah, if it is the guest and you want to detect the geographical location, you can use the IP address, but it is only if you don't know the user exactly. You need to decide. Sometimes the user uses some proxies that value may not be accurate. So different scenario, different detection message.
Also, it might be a problem if someone is from the US but traveling in South America and you suddenly start showing pages in Portuguese. Might not be the best user experience just based on IP address, right? Cool. So thank you, everyone, and huge thanks to Reza.
Thank you.
And we are reconvening around 7:20 for